All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Ashley Bernardi, the CEO of Nardi Media. We are a full service media relations firm that specializes in TV, radio, print, online placements for authors and nonprofits and thought leaders and luminaries. And I am so excited about our webinar today. As you are joining, please drop in the chat who you are, where you're zooming in from, and we want to hear from you throughout the chat. I'll be asking questions. If you like something, let us know. We want to hear from you. I am so excited about our webinar today. We are going to be talking all about establishing a strong video presence with my friend, Jamie Maglietta. Jamie is a TV producer and founder of On Camera Ready. So she spent 20 years in the media finding and booking experts. And today she's going to teach us how to build confidence on camera, even if you've never done video. She's going to show us simple strategies to show up on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and more. She's going to talk about why video is a game changer for your brand and PR strategy. And also the fun part is the do's and don'ts of equipment setup and messaging. So Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today for this incredible webinar.
Hello, everybody. I am really excited to be here, and I love our conversations. Ashley, we've been getting to know each other through our own mastermind where we talk through, the business and what it is in this media ecosystem that we're all a part of or that people are trying to be a part of. And, one of those conversations that I have with a ton of experts is how do I show up on camera? So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm so thankful for our friendship.
Likewise, I am so thankful too. And just so you both know, Jamie and I are cut from the same cloth. We are former network TV producers, and there's a lot I feel like I'm even going to learn today from you, Jamie, because it's been a while since I have been in the newsroom and been a producer. So I am just so excited to let you take the reins and dive in. Just for housekeeping, everyone, you will be able to ask questions. We're going to do a Q&A more towards the end, but if a question pops up throughout, please feel free to ask, and I will make sure to flag Jamie down and say, hey, Jamie, hold on. Someone's got a question about this, but we're definitely going to save time more towards the end of the hour for a full Q&A with Jamie. We are recording this as well, so we will send the playback. And yeah, Jamie, I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, guys, I'm going to share my screen. Let me get that going. All right, presented in full screen. You're going to see that real quick. Okay, everybody with me still? Yay, we're all together. All right, guys, thank you for that introduction. Yes, I'm Jamie Maglietta. I'm going to give a little overview of my background and why I believe that I am one of the strongest on-camera experts that you're going to come across right now. I'm Jamie Maglietta, as I said, and I've worked across Fox News Channel, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Paramount, BET, MTV. I've worked across a lot of different networks. And what makes me a little bit more unique is that I've been on camera as well as behind the scenes. So when I started my career, I was at MSNBC, but then I quickly got recruited over to Fox News Channel. And when I went over to Fox News Channel, I was a producer there within months. And I'm very thankful to the mentors that I had at Fox. They also pushed me to be on camera. So I started to be on camera at foxnews.com, and they were testing out this 24/7, let's get news out to everyone on the web. It was this whole new concept back then. And I would show up and give some reports on international news. The reason international news is because I was in charge of promoting Fox and Fox Business abroad. So I was the first producer, and I created this idea. It was called Fox Extra. And I worked with my boss at the time, and we designed this product that filled all the commercial breaks. Looking back, essentially what I was doing was I was creating reels. I was working with the anchors and the reporters and coming up with ways for them to show up authentically when they weren't on air. And we would fill the commercial breaks. And I had 900 to 1,000 different pieces of content in rotation. And I started to have to track and be on camera myself because I needed so much content. So I have a fortunate background of being in front of the camera and behind the scenes. When I was at CNN, the last show I worked on was Reliable Sources, where I got the opportunity to really focus on journalism, media, and how people are showing up on social media and across different platforms. That also gave me this started really creating this passion for understanding the communication that happens between experts and the press online. I started to get pitched, from Twitter or Instagram from experts saying, "Hey, I would like to be on camera." And I would look through their profiles and I would realize they had a few things that are missing to really make them stand out. And that is why we're here today, to talk about those points that you really need to have in this day and age if you want to be on camera. All right, so that's a little bit about me. And I am going to start by having you answer a few questions. And you can put this in the chat. What's stopping you? Okay, if you aren't already on camera, is it self-doubt? Are you having issues with your own personal branding, your messaging? Do you need clarity on who you are as an expert? Are these any of the thoughts that might be going through your head that are kind of holding you back? If you don't mind, go into the chat and just let us know how you're showing up or what might be holding you back from showing up. Ashley, do let me know if anyone's in there because otherwise I have to
Yep. So
hop out of
we
these
already have
slides.
folks sharing. So Sophie says the worry. Okay, hold on, start with Stephanie. Fear, personal branding, messaging, overwhelm, clarity. Yes. Sophie, the worry of looking awkward, saying the wrong thing.
Mhm.
Catherine, the tech is what is holding me back. Oftentimes
Mhm.
I can relate to that. Me personally, I like
Mhm.
I'm on camera often. I still have self-doubt. Like it's just
Yeah.
it still exists for me. So I'm excited. Kimberly said time. That's
Yeah.
another big one.
Okay, great. So we're going to touch upon a lot of this. And one of the things that I am going to say, if in your head you think you're awkward, you're going to look for evidence that shows you are. So if you're going to be recording yourself on camera and you already have those self-doubts, you're going to see them. You're going to find the evidence to support it. And that's how humans are made. So what you need to do is start going into it and saying, I am accepting who I am, and I'm going to do everything I can to look as great as I can personally. And I'm going to prepare. You need to produce yourself. If you're not producing yourself, you're actually not doing what on camera personalities do. And that's what you need to do in order to stand out, producing yourself. Okay, so we're going to go through a bit of that. Some of the things that I call this sets. You really need to have skills, the equipment, time, as someone else mentioned, and strategy. Okay, so we're going to go through a few of these points during this webinar. And again, I'll have you go into the chat and share some of your experiences or issues so that we can try to work through them as we go. Okay, skills. You really need to have, before you start recording, you can't press record until you've thought these things through. Okay, guys? Skills, vision, messaging, scripting, and production. Again, I am a producer, but I've been in front of the camera. Being in front of the camera, you need to have thought all the same things through that a producer needs to think of before producing a TV show. I don't go into a control room without a plan in place, without scripting, a vision, a path, right? You, as someone who's going to be showing up as an expert, need to be thinking the same way and doing the work. You also need to know what platforms are meant for you. You don't want to be spreading yourself thin and going all over the place and not making any connections that are worthwhile. So you need to know who's your audience and where are they hanging out, okay? There's all these different platforms and you could say, "Oh, Facebook is my jam. I love Instagram. There's TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and now we also have Twitter still in the mix." For all of them, your messaging is essential. Now, with Twitter, you don't necessarily need to be there with video, but you should be there. And I'll get to that toward the end in my added bonus. So, skills. You also need to know about the creation content tools that are out there. There's CapCut, Canva, Riverside, and then there's also ChatGPT. Now, if you don't know any of those, you may want to write those down and look at them afterwards because they have some free options that can help you get started. You can also be creating your content in TikTok as well as Instagram. And what I will add is Instagram is adding edits. And apparently it's going to be stronger or as strong as CapCut. CapCut is tied to ByteDance or BitDance. I don't know, Ashley, am I pronouncing that right? With TikTok. And if the TikTok ban goes through, CapCut goes away. So you have to think about that. Know your resources and know how to use these tools. Skills. Now, I just did a branding shoot and I'm going to take a pause and bring this up for a second. When we're talking about your vision and your clarity and some of the things that hold you back, if branding is one of them, you need to start making a commitment to what your colors are, your look, and embrace it because that consistency does help your audience start to grow and become aware of who you are in and see you in the scroll. It helps them build that know, like, and trust because they know it's you on screen, right? Now, I'm not going to always be wearing purple. I can't. I really can't, guys. I'm embracing it because it works really well with my grays. But, and we'll talk more about colors at the end, but it is something to consider. Like how you show up on camera and being consistent with your look will help you grow. Equipment. So when we talked about in the beginning, I said sets. So S was skills, E, equipment. And what I'm going to do is just show you a few things that I highly recommend everyone have if you're going to be creating your own content at home. Now, Ashley and I tested this before, and I won't really be able to talk unless I'm on this mic. So I'm going to move this mic back and get out of my chair. So that's why I'm doing this. Okay, guys? Everybody hear me? Ashley, you got me? Okay, great. So
Good.
if you are going to be creating content at home, you will want to have a tripod. Now, this is the tripod. I actually have it in pink and there's also, it comes in black. But I got pink because I was working with a client who has pink as part of her brand strategy. And I thought it just looked really cool. It popped off like the walls. So you can go with a black if you're not going to be seeing your tripod, but you should have a tripod that can get as tall as you or taller. Okay. And if it doesn't, you don't want it because you need your camera to be at eye level. So when I'm using a tripod, I usually will put the camera right here, my cell phone. Again, I use my cell phone a lot. And I'm making sure that it is eye level, that this camera is at my eyes, okay? So that I can be seen. And then you're also going to want to be framed a certain way, but we won't be able to get into that today. You'll also want to have a light. Now, right now for this conversation, I am using a ring light, but I keep this ring light here. When I'm in my office, I use a flat LED. And the reason I use a flat LED is because it's softer light and it's a little bit easier on those who wear glasses. And if you have it up a little bit higher than your eye level, you won't really see the glare from your glasses. So if you have an issue with glasses, that's something you may want to consider. And then I always have a mic. So the mic I use is Hollyland, and I really like it because it's magnetic and you could just pop it on to your outfit and it hooks into your phone. So equipment is essential and you can spend very little money and just have these things that you keep in your purse, your car, wherever you feel like you need to be making your content most. I'm going to be having a content creation boot camp online. You're more than welcome to join up for emails, the wait list, and be a part of that too. Now, time. In order to produce content the way you need to grow. Now, again, I am not a social media growth specialist. I am a producer, and I know how to help people produce themselves for the camera. I consider myself like an idea machine. You know, if you come to me and you're like, this is what I want to talk about, I can start helping you spit out. I could spit out ideas like AI in in a lot of cases. But AI is a great resource. I will turn to AI and say, I am looking for, I don't know, I did 90 reels, and I need to have some ideas pertaining to my topic. And then you explain what you are an expert in. And AI will start spitting out ideas. But what you want to write down, which I don't have here and wasn't really planning on getting into, is what you need to specifically ask it to provide. It needs to provide you with a hook, a transition, and copy. The reason is it will basically AI will then provide you with very short scripts that can help you create content that elevates your expertise on social media, on YouTube Shorts. So again, you're going to use ChatGPT. You're going to tell it all about yourself. And when you prompt it, you're going to say, I need, let's just say, 10 short videos, 30 seconds each. And I would like you to break it down with a hook, a transition, and copy. If you could have some of them include a CTA, a call to action. And if you have a book, you're going to say, in my call to action, I want you to reply book, and I'll send you a link to my book. If you're a CEO and you have some type of corporate fundraiser going on, you're going to say, reply charity, and I'll send you a link. Now, you could then go to the next extreme and hook up your social media with those AI responders. But in the beginning, it's really better to just do it yourself and have personal correspondences with people. And I think that that's a great way for you to put yourself out there and start communicating. It's also about strategy, as we just discussed. So, what have we talked about? We talked about how you need to just start putting yourself out there, embracing who you are, and have a plan in place, right? You need to produce yourself up. You need to think like a producer so that you can shine on camera and also start attracting. Now, if you're someone who is an expert in, let's just say, finance, right? And you're like, I don't know what to talk about. I highly recommend you lean into the news. So before I get to some strategy ideas, I'm just going to leave a few nuggets of information so you understand why it's important to show up as experts on social media. You know, Gen Z, they're starting to say they trust experts on TikTok, right? There's people turning to TikTok for medical advice, financial advice. They would rather hear advice from those in their feeds than to call a practitioner. Why? Because of time. They're trying to save time too. So wouldn't it be great if you're an expert in, say, dog grooming and you're there all the time, and then they can learn from you, and then they're going to say, you know what? I want you to groom my dog and I need to know where you're located. And they may even come to you. I've seen this where hairstylists who make themselves experts, they offer advice, value, and they start to build community, and they lure people to their salons who are hours away. So you don't know who you're going to reach, and it's worth trying. Nearly 1/3 of American adults now trust social media for financial advice. Like this just came out. It was 2025. And then, oh, this one's not showing. I don't know why, unfortunately. So when you start to go through your stats and you see, okay, people are going to trust those that show up. So let's just scrap the press for a second, right? You're someone who's an expert and you want to build community. That is the essential base of why you should be showing up, because you need to have that engagement. When you were growing up, and you, like, before social media, you're growing up in a town and you knew who the mayor was. You knew who the principal of the school was. You knew who these people were because they had a great personal brand, right? You now need to think, what would my personal brand look like on social media? Because when the press comes and looks at your feed, you want them to see that you offer more than just a soundbite. You're providing value, and you could potentially bring eyeballs to whatever program they're putting you on, or an article that they're going to quote you in. They're going to say, oh, well, she has some reach, right? You want people to come to your page and see that you provide value, that you're more than just a soundbite, and that you are a true expert who can deliver on camera, delivering on camera. So to test the waters with social media, I would say, you plan out your personal brand pillars, okay? You're thinking like a producer. If I'm producing a show, my A block is my hard news. For you, your A block is your expertise. Who are you? What makes you? And how do you keep driving home your expertise in a unique way, right? Your B block, sometimes on television, we'll put like a fluffy story there, right? That might be your things that drive you, motivate you. adding a little bit more personality, right? You may say, okay, I want to share that I play tennis. Okay. Then you have two other in a show, you have 5 blocks. Usually you'll hit your hard news again in your half. So that's your third block. So you're coming up with this structure essentially like a TV show. And the way you can program your social media like your own media channel, and that's where the pillars come in. So you're thinking like, what are the 4 things that I can talk about every week that reflect who I am and allow me to weave in my expertise like in a TV show so that it doesn't feel like I'm selling people all the time, right? Like if I'm producing a show and I'm constantly talking about Ukraine the whole hour for months and months and months, everyone's going to start turning away because they're like, I've heard too much. You need to weave it in. And that's the same thing when it comes to producing yourself on social media. Weave in who you are. One good example is Kelly Hyman. If you don't follow her, you should. She and I spoke in 2022, and I had said to her, show up on camera. Just show up and share who you are. She's been featured in magazines for everything from like being organized to personal fitness to the fact that she's a lawyer. Okay. And that's the priority is she's a lawyer. She appears now on Fox News Channel and CNN. And when she shows up on social media, she has a consistent look. Now, would I change it? Of course, because I'm a producer and I think of all the details that people don't always think about. But here's just a basic on camera position. She has thought about her background, right? In that, and she's just delivering her opinion on something in the news. This one is another great way. She actually had someone ask her questions that she then answers, right? So when you're starting to strategize how you show up, it could be that simple. You could have your kid or your husband or someone you work with ask you a question off camera, and it gives that feeling like you're having a conversation with your audience. Another one is producer Patrick. He, in the last year, it has soared online. He's using the news every single day. He's showing up and he does not use any of this equipment. He's just holding that phone. But what he does use are, as you saw, headlines. So he leans into the news, which helps because then he gets quoted in articles by Hollywood Reporter. He gets asked to show up at South by Southwest to weigh in on the state of the film industry. Guys, he's a producer. But now he's made himself an expert because he shows up leaning into the news. And that's what you want. When producers and journalists drop on your page, they want to see that A, you're delivering value, and B, you are showing up consistently, and 3, you know what's going on and you are giving something to your audience, but also you're aware of the news. Okay. Here's something you could try. I would say it's very simple. You set up a tripod, and I'm just going to see if I could play it again. You see how you're framed here. You have a lot of head space, right? You could record this in your office where you're just standing with a wall behind you. Maybe you point. What you're going to do is then in like a CapCut or Instagram, you're going to have that headline that you're going to share some thoughts about above you, right? This is an easy way to start including the news without it being green screen or taking full screen. So if you're an author and you see book sales are on the rise, you could say, book sales are on the rise. You know why? Because we're delivering, and I have one out too. You should check it out. If you want to just be cute and clever, you can lean into a headline, but also showcase your personality. So it's all about strategy. And we talked about us mentioning YouTube. And the reason I want to bring up YouTube is because if you are hard on time, it's a great way to deliver your expertise. Because if you think of like a 5-minute video or a 15-minute video and you record it on camera for YouTube, and you can use a platform like Riverside, I mentioned earlier, because what Riverside does, by the way, is like Zoom. You can record in Zoom, but what Riverside does is it gives you a transcript, and at the end, it'll even tell you what your YouTube description should be, and it'll AI it for you, and then it'll cut your video into clips for different platforms like LinkedIn, TikTok. So if you add your videos ahead of time and you play them out while you're recording, you can essentially edit everything at the end, have AI edit everything for you, and it really saves time. And there's other platforms like StreamYard that you can look at too. But I use Riverside. All right. So saving time, YouTube. You create your show on YouTube and then you pull that content for newsletters, LinkedIn posts, and social media. Here's a great example of how YouTube can help. So Chris Saliza and I spoke, I don't know, maybe a year ago. And I said to him, I would love to have you on my podcast and my YouTube show because at the time I was being very consistent with it. I haven't done it since May because I needed to take a break. It was too much. And I'll tell you why it was all too much at the end. But Chris just started around then. He's now at 61,000 subscribers on YouTube. Why? Because he shows up and does these very short videos and leans into the news within his niche, right? So if you are focusing on the content that really helps your audience stay informed, that can really help you. And it's easy content to create if you're an expert. So Tara Palmieri, oh my goodness, she just left traditional media and decided I'm going to have a YouTube show and I'm going to have a newsletter. And she's already climbing the ladder here at 9,000 subscribers. And she's doing something very similar, leaning into the news. However, what's different, with Tara is that she is a reporter. So a lot of the reporting is still her own, making her a true expert within her niche. And so she doesn't necessarily need to lean into other people's headlines, but can deliver her own. Now, no matter what your politics are, Instagram and TikTok, these three are doing wonders with leaning into the news. And I keep saying this because as experts, news is what really helps you, especially if you want to attract the press. And I will get back to this, but don't let me forget Twitter and why you need to be there still. X is important. But if you want to start showing up with videos, I suggest you check them out. Liz Clayman is really great on TikTok. And what I love about her is her consistency is within her text, not her look. So she'll show up like jeans and a t-shirt, right? But you know what she looks like on camera, and you can find her in polished videos anywhere, right? So if I didn't know who she was and I stumbled upon her as a financial expert, I would be like, oh, wow, she's just like really raw, but she's consistent. And then I would Google her and see that she has this great personality and knows how to really show up on camera. Max is another one. I worked with Max for years and he does many just like in his office or walking, and it's great. Clever. You can subscribe to my YouTube. I'm trying to get it up and going and I'm looking for guest ideas. So if you have any, do let me know. I focus on how to help people appear prepared on camera, but also what they do behind the scenes to prepare for on-camera opportunities. All right, so we discussed strategy, and I said I needed to bring up TikTok and I needed to bring up colors, outfits. So let's talk TikTok. I did this webinar, and it was all about how to use Twitter to lure in the press. When I was at CNN, there would be experts who would message me directly on Twitter and say, hey, was hoping you could check out this story, would love your advice. Great. Okay, cool. But what really works is what Nina Jankowicz, so Nina, she's one of my videos. You'll see her at the bottom, showing up even when the world seems against you. Nina would go on Twitter and have an opinion, right? So she's on Twitter sharing an opinion. And then the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and she talks about this in our conversation, would reach out to her and say, hey, would you ever want to write an op-ed on this? Why? Because she's become so well known as an expert in her niche that just a little comment on X can turn into an opportunity, right? And if you ever pay attention to, when people get quoted from X, it's because they've made bold statements, but it's also because they've created engagement. So if there's a news story and you are like, wait a second, ABC interviewed this expert, but I disagree with what they have to say, you may actually want to show up on Twitter with that article and say, this expert had this to say, but I have a different opinion, and share it, because that can help you start to attract, right? And if you're tagging the ABC, you're tagging the journalist, it could start building even a conversation with them. And you never know, it could lead to some organic opportunities. regardless of where you show up. It's important that you choose, again, your platforms and you show up consistently. And if you are an expert, like you are the best of the best in your niche, you want to showcase what you know because whatever you come up with could even generate an idea in the media, right? So I did this one video and it was just on camera equipment. An affiliate in Atlanta was like, "Hey, do you want to come on camera and walk through different equipment ideas?" So you never know what it can lead to when you show up with your own ideas. So let's have some Q&A and we can talk about more on LinkedIn and colors and outfits if you want.
So many fun things. Okay, so Jamie, I'm even taking notes. I'm like, this is brilliant.
I'm trying to get through it as fast as I can,
I
guys.
love it. And no, this is great because we have a lot of time for Q&A and I
Good.
see several questions in the chat. So I'm going to start at the top here. For the microphone, Catherine asked, is it Holy Land? I think is it Holly Land?
Or Holly, maybe.
Yeah, Holly.
Holly. I
Yep.
have this on cam ready it's on cam ready /resources and we'll give you a QR link and you can get to it. But these are magnetic. I've tested a ton of products. So what I did last year was a lot of testing lights, testing products. And if I don't know what I would do without this. I like Rode. That's another great brand, Rode, but they're chunky where these can be discreet and you can get them in black too. And again, it's magnetic and it's Holly land.
All right. I just dropped your resources page in here too. So
Cool.
great. Okay. More questions. Let's go down to Kimberly. She says, okay, this is going back to the 4 pillars. Is it always the same 3 to 4 pillars each week or new ones each week?
So I would say what you should do is identify your personal brand. Who are you and who do you want to share with the world? Right? There's the private Kimberly and then there's the public Kimberly, right? And if you're going to start using your social media to lean into the media, you want to be strategic like the press. And I would say you want to think, okay, I don't know if you're an author, but let's just lean into that. Say you're an author and you're an expert on financial advice, right? So you maybe once or twice a week, because remember what I said in the news, you're hitting that hard news twice in an hour. So you may want to think, okay, once or twice a week, I'm going to bring up tips on what I offer people. And I'm not going to sell my book every time, but I'm going to say, oh, one time I'm going to say there's a headline and here's my opinion and here's what you can learn from this takeaway, which is my book. Or the next time you're going to say, hey, 82% of people aren't paid as much as they used to be paid or whatever, okay? And then you're going to give your advice as to how to handle it. You're going to negotiate, you're going to show up, you're going to document everything you know. And then you're not going to mention your book, right? So you may want to hit your expertise twice in that week. Those other pillars, so there's 3 other pillars. Those could be more of your journey, right? If you're an author, you may want to have a post every week that kind of reminds everybody of the journey of what it's like to be an author. So you can start attracting future authors, people who are writers, right? Because you want to start thinking about who's your community, who's going to engage with your content, right? So behind the scenes videos, maybe you typing at your desk, writing, reviewing manuscripts. And if you didn't shoot any content when you were producing your book, you may want to just start shooting some B-roll of you flipping through the pages, typing at your computer, writing in a notebook that you can use as a way to reflect back on your journey. Or you may want to do like a Q&A with yourself, sitting down at a sofa and say, hey, I wrote this book and I can't believe it took me 7 years. And here's a tip that for other authors on how to maybe speed up the process, right? That could be a pillar. Another could be your family. So say you're a mom and you have kids and you guys spend a lot of time together. You love being outside, hiking. You may want to share some of that personality once a week as part of your pillars. Or say you play tennis, right? And then that 4th one could be something like your networking events. For instance, I host workshops and webinars, and you may want to have some video behind the scenes of that. Speaking of that, I should be recording myself right now. And so this is what I would do. I would essentially get this tripod and I would put my camera on it and I would set it up away from me so that I'm in the center of the screen. And so if I could do that real quick, Ashley, then I can record
Please
about
do it.
5 minutes.
Like, maybe I'll get my tripod too. I think that's
And
genius. Do
so I
it.
think, you have to take stock in what you can do when you have your media moments. So if you're going to be giving a workshop or a talk and you don't record it, that's a missed opportunity. So you need to think, how do I record this and be as discreet as possible? Just set up a tripod in the corner. And if it's 50 minutes long, you just edit it down
Right.
and don't save 50 minutes. So let me just do this real quick. And that's it. So I have a tripod recording while I'm on this so that I can share that I had this conversation with you. So that's kind of what you want to think about when it comes to your pillars. Your pillars are a representation of your public personal brand. You want to think about what are the key points that you want to weave in throughout the week on social media that you know you can be consistent doing. Now, I tested out a few things in the last few months. I did 90 tips in 90 days. It drove me nuts. I couldn't maintain it. It was too much. So I would say you want to make sure, and it didn't result in enough. I think I just was so, I just think I was so burnt out by it that I didn't put enough into it. So you don't want to show up every day if you can't handle it. You want to say, okay, I can show up 3 days a week. And so I'm going to do 3 pillars. And these are the 3 things I'm going to make sure I have in rotation. But one thing that a lot of people don't know, and again, I am not a social media growth specialist, I'm a producer. But if you are producing yourself up in your stories, say on Instagram, you're going to make more sales there than you are in your feed. And on YouTube, if you decide to go down the road of having a YouTube show, you're going to want to test out shorts because I know people who have grown their accounts just using shorts. So there's a strategy on YouTube that can allow you to cross promote your content from Instagram. So if you're creating videos for Instagram, you can share them to your YouTube shorts and it could help you build an audience there before you even start your YouTube channel. Now, I do want to make sure I mention LinkedIn while we're talking videos.
Yep.
So LinkedIn is pushing vertical videos. I'm sure if you're on, you see it. If you're not on LinkedIn, you should be, because right now it is a truly engaged space for experts. And the press is there more than I anticipated, or just that I didn't go there as much before. And I'm noticing more people are there now. The press will be there to share articles, and it's like crickets. No one's really engaging. It's an opportunity, guys. If you see a journalist that you like and you would love to have quote you, and they're sharing content, weigh in every time, because you'll start to pop up in their feed more and more. And then when you do share that vertical video, if that journalist is now following you, they'll see it too. And your vertical videos on LinkedIn can be something that you record. You could batch record all your tips. And that's something I got to say. LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. If you're someone who's like, I'm going to provide tips every week, you could record 10 tips sitting down in front of a riverside or in front of your cell phone with a teleprompter feature and record a ton of tips that you then cut and schedule out. So then that's like one thing you don't have to even think about every week. Now, if you're leaning into the news, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But if you're just offering tips, that's a great way. And that's what a lot of people on LinkedIn use. And they also use this app called Captions. So it's CapCut, but then captions. And what people are doing on LinkedIn is they will take their plain Jane video, throw it into captions. And what captions can do if you pay for the pro plan is it can add animations, videos, cool little designs, and all your captions. And you can customize the colors. So it's always your brand. And then there's also Descript, where you can put your plain Jane videos through and they'll dress it up there too. And that's what a lot of the LinkedIn videos are. Now, the difference with LinkedIn to Instagram and TikTok and YouTube is that LinkedIn is more professional. You don't want to just be there and say, "Hey, I'm so glad we're all talking about, this event. Here's my experience." No, you really want to be there providing more information. You want your call to action. You want to be really involved on LinkedIn with like copy, because LinkedIn started as more of a copy driven platform. So copy does still matter. But what people don't realize is, so on LinkedIn, if you're posting videos or you're posting copy, you really want your links to follow said copy and video, because that helps boost it in their system. So it's like, okay, I have all this copy, and then you say, and the link is below. Link is below. Video, you do a video, link is below. And you put it there. And then that will really help. You don't really want to do the reply ready, because I've noticed that doesn't work as much as having the link there and people grabbing it and liking it. Now, if you're doing things on Facebook, Facebook is also really pushing video. So again, we're showing up on camera here, guys, in all these ways. On Facebook, you can get away with the horizontals, right? And you can shoot horizontal and cut it vertically. It just gives you more work when both platforms are pushing for verticals right now. You don't need square, you don't need horizontal. You are great doing a vertical, because what's happening, if you're not aware, Instagram, Facebook, they're paired. So a reel from Instagram can get shared to Facebook and get pushed out to your Facebook audience there. I just started to embrace Facebook. I was afraid to use Facebook because a lot of my TV friends are there, and I'm starting my own business, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want people to think I'm pulling away from being a producer," because I'm not. But I feel so passionate about helping more experts show up, because as a producer, many times I would pitch someone who was great on paper, but I couldn't find them on social media or YouTube or in a live interview. And it was like, I don't know if they're going to be good on camera. Okay, well, we're not going to use them. Who else you got? So you have to think, like, if you don't start showing up, it could be the make or break for television in some instances. Now, for print, not so much. But if you're showing up and you start attracting those journalists and you start giving them a reason to follow you by generating ideas, right? You're coming up with the thought leadership. They then may say, "Hey, I'd love to write an article on that," or "I'd love to quote you in this article." You're giving them ideas. You're pitching them without pitching them. You want to be engaged with the media outside of your pitches or outside of your publicity, because it will help you stay front of mind. So then when they do get that pitch, they're like, "Oh, right, I just saw Hillary on Instagram talking about this. She'd be great to quote in this article." So you just want to start thinking about, what are people tuning into? They're tuning into TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. They're not on cable news as much anymore. So now you have an opportunity to show up and program your social media feed so that when people are scrolling and they're scrolling between ABC News and experts, you get popped up. And the more engagement you have, these platforms start suggesting you to your audience. And that's what you want. I went on and on. Sorry, Kimberly. What else?
That was,
Any other questions?
so much great content. Yes, we have so many more questions. Okay, so
I'm going to turn off my tripod.
Okay, next we're going to get to Stephanie. Which comes first, YouTube then Twitter, other way around, or it doesn't matter? And also, what if you low-key hate one of the platforms, X?
Don't show up there. But know that no matter what anybody says, I see it, journalists are still there. So if you're someone who's opinionated and you want to be picked up by the press, it's kind of hard to avoid that location. It really is. But if you're someone who is providing value into the world and is less opinionated and more just, you have this knowledge to share and you want people to learn and grow, then your space is more of like a YouTube, right? So if we're looking at those two that you brought up. But what I'll say this is, you need to start where you're ready. So Twitter's easy. You just go there, you can share what you want in a comment, and I would say you want to tag those that you mention. So if you're mentioning Bloomberg News, you're tagging them. If you're mentioning a reporter's article, you're tagging them because it'll basically help get their attention organically. Now, if you're on YouTube, you have a lot to prepare. People aren't on YouTube anymore just shooting with their cell phones. You can. I have a 16 Pro and I would use that on YouTube and I plan to. And my MacBook Pro Max is brand new and this camera is great. But you want to make sure you have good quality video. If you're grainy, it doesn't work. So for YouTube, you need to make sure you have all your ducks in a row. You need to know, I would say these are the points. For YouTube, you need to have your show name, your concept, know your audience. You need to know what would you say in your opening every single time. You'd need a strategy in place to shoot and script and shoot your content. If you're going to have interview guests, you need to know how to book them, prep them. And then when it's all said and done, you're recording, right? And now you need to know how to edit. And then you need SEO. And you see what I'm saying? It's a lot more steps. So if you're hesitant about even showing up on camera, start small. Maybe start with like a LinkedIn video a week. On LinkedIn, you could do one video a week and do great. On Instagram, you need to be a bit more consistent. I would say, I'm not a growth specialist, but I would say if you're producing up your story and you're trying to build an audience there, like television, you're going to want to be consistent. So I would say maybe at least 3 times a week at the same exact time. So people see you in their feed regularly. So like the people who wake up and are on TikTok at 7 in the morning while they work out, you show up whenever you do post if they're following you. So you get what I'm saying? Like you want that same programming, like primetime news is at 6 p.m. It's still the same mentality. We're just in a different space. So LinkedIn wants this. TikTok is a bit more aggressive and you can be more casual there. I'm horrible at TikTok because I have trouble just being like, hey, got this cool microphone. You got to check it out. I'm not that person and you may not be either, but those are the people that seem to really do well. Now, as I said, Liz Clayman and Max, they do great leaning into the news. I haven't tested that myself there, but they're doing well. And it's a way to get into it. And it's also a way to get over the I'm doing it. I think I'm awkward on TikTok. So then every time I try to record a TikTok, I see only awkwardness, right? I have to get past it and test it myself. I just can't be spread too thin. So I've decided TikTok isn't my priority right now. And you can do that too. You don't have to be everywhere. I don't know what the question was, Ashley.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, and you also kind of answered the next question, but maybe we'll kind of reiterate it. How do you tie it all together so it's manageable? Because it does feel overwhelming, and I can understand people who have not, they're like editing. Oh my God, like what? This is one more thing I have to do in addition to actually doing the job I'm supposed to do. So Stephanie was like, is there like a step-by-step checklist? How do you tie it all together so it's manageable?
So the type of checklist I'm offering now is more of like an online audit where you can go online and see where you show up and how you show up. And if you show up to the authority, like showcasing the authority you want the press to see you have, right? So I do have that type of checklist. I have an on-cam ready checklist, but I haven't really put it out there yet. I would say, editing can be easier than you think. However, if you're going down the road of YouTube, you need to budget for an editor. That's just it.
Yeah.
When it comes to social media, if you keep it easy, it will be easy. So I have my virtual boot camp that I'm creating because I get that question all the time. So I'm going to teach people how to use some of these editing apps in that because you need to at least know the basics. And it is easy to follow, but I had to teach myself. So I'm going to just share a personal story as to why this has become so important for me. As I said, when I started, I was in front of the camera. I didn't like that vibe of being in front of the camera like I thought I would. I knew I thrived behind the scenes, coming up with ideas and directing those on camera. Through my career, a lot of what I did and enjoyed most was helping people look better and sound stronger on camera. So when I left CNN in 2022 when Reliable Sources ended, I took a job at BET, but at the same time, I continued to podcast. And I put myself on because I didn't have a talent. And I said, well, I need to keep learning these skills and learning how to edit and learning how to do all this. So how else am I going to do it unless I'm on camera? So I forced myself to do the way I sounded. And I had my mom saying, oh, Jamie, your background looks so messy. It was like hearing all those things. And so I took it upon myself, this was 2022, to start learning because the further I got from being in a control room every day, the more I realized how no one is watching. Like, I don't mean to be like negative and I don't want to sound that way about television, but like, we're not watching the way we used to watch, and that's just the truth. And I found myself doing it. I was on social media every day, where before I was glued to the television for work. So I watched MSNBC, CNN. Like I didn't watch anything but news. So once I pulled away, I saw that everyone is in their feeds and there's a true opportunity for people. But you have to if let's just say Instagram, let's just focus on Instagram for a second. You need to have a public account. You can't be private if you want to be found. If you're someone who's sharing about the food you ate and what your kids are doing, make it private. There's no reason to be public, because you don't want the press to find you and see that all you're doing is being with your kids and enjoying meals. You want to make that private. But if you want to use Instagram to be publicly sharing your expertise, you want to start being strategic and produce yourself up, because when you start showing up on camera ready, the press will see you as that. It used to be where, can you find a live interview with that person? And I'd be searching like, no, I can't. But when I would find a good live interview, they'd be like, okay, yeah, she can handle live TV news. But the more I watch television or what appears or pops up in my scroll, I see influencers and TikTok experts showing up on camera on these networks, right? So if they can get spotted, you can get spotted. And if you're following the press, commenting on their posts on these platforms, it will start making you like visual to them. So it's all about your engagement as well as the content you're providing. So you want to think like, if someone were to land on my page, what would I want them to see? I hope that helps. I could talk forever. So
I know,
Ashley,
it's so
is there
good.
another?
I'm watching our time and
Yeah.
we have a couple more questions I definitely want to get through. Stephanie asked, have you seen any memoirists do well with multi-platform video strategy? So somebody who
What
writes a
was it?
memoir.
Oh, that's a great idea. So I work with an author. Her name's Allison Cossack, and she and I are always brainstorming ways to help her figure out her content. Now, she is what I do with her is I help her figure out like how to do all this. And she shoots her own, and sometimes she'll send me content and I'll review it and edit it or make it look a little prettier. But her book is about interviews with people and their financial journeys, and they're telling their stories, right? So what I tell her is that's a great opportunity for you to, so it's a memoir, right? So you can read a quote and that can be just as powerful, like an idea, right? That's coming to mind as I'm hearing this. If you're sharing your story, you want to think about quotes from it that you could maybe and look up, read and look up, because that is going to engage people. They're going to be like, what is she doing? Like if they're scrolling and your head's down, they're going to be like, what is she reading? Is she telling us something? Like you're going to give them a visual hook. And if you read a quote that's powerful or has meaning to the news at the time, it could be something that people pick up on. It depends on what your memoir is about. Like, so say you're writing about your journey as an athlete, let's just say, and the Olympics are taking place. Like, maybe you could weave your way in by sharing your story on social media, quotes reflecting on your own athletic background, right? And somehow someone may say, oh, you know what? I liked what you had to say. And it's very relevant to this story in the news right now about this guy who's in the Olympics. We'd like you to be a part of it. It's it's a little bit harder with a memoir, I will say, but there are ways that you can get creative on social media to get people to engage and want to be a part of your journey and learn more about your book. I would need to know your book. But in a lot of times, like with Allison, she's pulling quotes and using pictures and we're trying to put together like nostalgia moments too. Like that could be an opportunity depending on your book. Go ahead, Ashley.
Brilliant. Okay. So as we are getting through these last couple of questions here, I would love to hear from everyone. What has been your aha moment today? I've had several. I've taken my own notes, Jamie, because this has been brilliant, but I want to hear from everyone else. What have you learned today? What aha moments have you had? Don't worry, we still have 4 minutes. We're definitely going to get through a couple more questions, hopefully too, but want to hear from you. What aha moments have you had? Okay. So I wanted to get to Sunny's question. And this is interesting. Are journalists showing up on Blue Sky and Threads maybe as a move away from X or in addition to X?
So I've seen a ton of journalists on Threads. I've spent some time there last year when that was part of my let me experience what's out there journey. And I did notice a lot of what's happening though on Threads. Some of the journalists will basically use whatever they're tweeting and put it there too. So it is worth engaging there, and seeing what journalists are there. So if you're someone who wants to get noticed by the press organically, I would start with putting together a list of all the media outlets you would love to see yourself on. Put that list together. You're then going to put together a list of all the reporters and anchors that you would love to have interview you. And when you have that list, I highly suggest that you go on to the platforms that you plan to be active on and find them, like them, follow them, comment on their posts there, share their posts, weigh in so that they can start finding you. And that could be a great way for you to essentially network without meeting them in person. But yes, they are there.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So Sophie also asked a question here. When posting online and building a brand online, how much of the content should be about my service or product or event, and how much should be about me? Which I
Mm-hmm.
think is really interesting.
Yeah. So, I would say, Sophie, if you're putting together an event, it's really important to show people the behind the scenes as well as the finished product. So if you find yourself holding leadership meetings on a constant basis, right? You're meeting with people regularly virtually. You may want to have your camera off to the side recording you during those meetings. And what you may want to use is use that content to provide people with advice because you are a leader. You're creating events, you're leading teams. What, quotes or piece of advice can you share as a voiceover or as text on screen that can go with that video? You want to take advantage of that. You also then want to show like how the sauce is made. So if you're putting together an event and it's with a stage and lights and cameras, you want to have all that B-roll of putting the cameras together, working with the team, wearing your headset, walking around so that you can make those reels and that you have that video to reflect and use later in the year and even other years to refer back to. And you want to also show up on camera and talk to people. You want to give either, so say your event is about, let's just say you're a thought leadership focused event. You may want to say, okay, we have this one speaker. His name is X, and he talked about this. And one thing I gained from that was this, or here's my opinion. What do you think? Where you're referring to your event, you're not promoting it. right? You're using a talking point, sharing an opinion, and then getting people to engage. That's a way to essentially be adjacent to your event and your brand. You know, like you're not the brand representative at that time, you're yourself, but you're still being able to utilize that content. So, say you are, let's just say you see a book that you like. I just read this book. Here's my opinion. You stay consistent. So if you're talking about events and speakers that you put on, you may then want to weave in other things that you share your opinion on. So it comes across as organic and authentic. I hope that helps
Yeah,
without giving you every single idea I have in my head right now.
brilliant. Jamie, this has been so incredible, so much information, a
I
lot of
hope.
information. And we are so grateful for you and for your time. So let's hear from you. Where can we find you? And I'm going to drop all your social everything in the
Mhm.
chat for everyone, but tell us a little bit about what you're offering, how
Okay.
people can work for you, and anything else you'd like to share.
All right, guys. I have decided on my platforms. My platforms are Instagram, and I'm focusing on LinkedIn. Okay, so find me there, engage with me there. Before I move on, I just wanted to leave you with a final thought. You know, to be more, you need to be more to be more. So if you want to attract more, you need to show up more. You need to be authentically you more. You need to be more. And that doesn't mean you're full of yourself. That doesn't mean you're vain. That doesn't mean you think you're the best. It
Mhm.
just means you're being strategic.
Mhm.
And so my gift to you is an online audit. Be sure to download this on the oncamready.com/resources page, which is this QR code. You'll also see a link to my equipment. You'll see a link to pick my brain. People will just essentially pay for 1 hour to say, give me all your ideas. What do you got? So I have that there if you're interested. And then I'm also putting together a virtual boot camp called On Cam Ready, the Essentials. And what that's going to do is kind of review what we've talked about here, but go in more depth as to how you want to appear dependent on your niche, what you want to be doing, where you want to focus your time, and then how to edit the content. And that's what I'm trying to do is help more people get through that hurdle. And I'll pop back over to that slide, which I had over here. Let me get it so you have the QR. That's the boot camp for emails.
Brilliant.
For to sign up for my Substack and the wait list for that. I hope that helps.
Yes.
Everybody, I'm going to stop sharing. Guys, this has been great. My YouTube podcast is coming back out, and I really hope that Ashley joins so we can talk more.
Oh, you know I'll be there. And
Yay!
you. Yes, of course. We have so much more to talk about.
Mhm.
It's just so fascinating how the media landscape has changed even since I've been in the news, and how we all really are. We should, if we want to stay ahead, we really do all need to become our own producers. Therefore, that's why your training is so valuable, because you're teaching us how to do that, how to show up in the world. So thank
And no problem. And when it comes to it, guys, you really want to think like if you're producing something, you're thinking, what's my vision? How do I storyboard that vision? How do I make this happen? What shots do I need? What's the scripting? What's my hook? And how do I show up on camera consistently? So just remember, producing yourself is going to help you shine to the press.
I love that. And we'll leave it with that. Jamie, thank you so much for showing up for us today. This was brilliant. And we are recording this. So everyone, don't worry. All of this brilliance is going to be sent to you later in our video recording. And definitely check out, follow Jamie. I dropped her LinkedIn, Instagram, and website in here. I also dropped Nardi's in. We always would love to hear from you. You can visit our website. We also love LinkedIn and Instagram, just like you, Jamie. So thank you again for everything. Thank you, everyone, for joining, for your thoughtful questions. Have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to hearing from you. Tell us what you thought. Send us emails. We want to hear from you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Ooh, should I hang up?
I think we're all good. I'll close the chat now.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.